Exodus 23. All right, Exodus 23. We were going to do tonight verses 26 through 33 of Exodus 23. And Exodus 23 verses 26 is where the paragraph marking is. And it appears in verse 30. By little and little. Now if you go to Deuteronomy 7, verse 22, Deuteronomy 7, verse 22, I thought, well, maybe it appears differently there, but no, it actually phrased the same way. It says, by little and little. It does say it the same way, by little and little. All right, Father, bless our sermon tonight, and may it accomplish the goal that you would have it to accomplish, as your word would accomplish now, Father. In Christ's name, I pray. Amen. I looked up the word "little" in the dictionary in Webster's, and they'll actually go to the expression "little by little." You know, and they actually state the phrase little by little, not as a word to define, but in the definition of little. Little, by small degrees or increments gradually. And so they do define it that way with the expression that you and I would be accustomed to. But it is in the Bible. It is in there. And I got thinking about, well, she's not bothering me. She may be bothering others. I don't know. Maybe I lied. She's bothering me. And I got thinking, how did we get to where we are right now? It starts with a neighbor that witnesses to me. She was a Methodist, and she gave me I don't even know how I acquired the magic set. I acquired this magic set. I think it was from her. They probably were cleaning house and they gave it to me. And it was kind of corny. There was this top hat, plastic top hat. It was black. It was plastic. What was the plastic top hat made out of? It was black. What were all the phones made out of back then? Bakelite is probably, now it may not have been Bakelite, but it was hard. It was rock hard. And abracadabra, you had to wave over it, and you moved this thing up, this little thing that held the rabbit down, and the rabbit would pop up. I mean, it was kind of corny. But she had this track in there, and it was this, and I say it's up there. I still have it. It's probably something from the 50s. A gospel track. And after I got saved, I said, I'll bet that was a track. I know I brought this up here before. It's about being illusions and being tricked, and that the devil can trick you. Yeah, and it's a cool track, and I saw a new one, and I saved that one too, because I'd like to develop that and put it out again. I haven't seen it for sale like in Fellowship Track League or those. We get those tracks, not that we order them, but once in a while we get them. When the print is so small, folks, I don't even want to read them. You got to make it so that people want to read them. Anyway, it started back then, probably when I had, we went to the Mennonite church. It probably started there. And then I had that track, and I didn't really pay attention as to what it meant. It witnessed, probably asked you to say a prayer in the back. But I wasn't interested in that as a child. I was interested in the illusions, man. They were cool. Cool illusions. And then along the way, I would go to work and I would hear this Methodist or a Presbyterian doing a 1-minute ad. That's what made me do the 1 minute, the 60-second track. This would have been 40 years ago. And I would hear this little ad he would put on, and I would look forward to that, really look forward. I would try to be on the highway to hear that commercial on the radio. It could have been on 1100 WJW, WGAR, Wixie. I don't think Wixie was already kaputzed. What would have been back out there 40 years ago? WGAR.
40 years ago would be the 70s.
It was probably in the 70s.
Yeah.
Well, what was it? Was Wixie gone by then?
I
think Wixie.
Wixie, yeah, was gone.
Well, WGAR, WHK, WKYC, you know.
CKLW, if you'd love to listen to Canada.
It was on one of those stations. It was something I was listening to, and I never listened to rock.
Yeah.
And it wasn't on Whistler. It wasn't Whistler. I don't think any respectable Presbyterian would be on Whistler.
WHK was country by then, so.
Okay. But I would listen to that. I guess the point I'm making is little by little, I finally got saved. Little by little. And we as Americans want it when?
Immediately.
We want it now. They say one of the problems that millennials have today is what do they want now? They want what their parents have now. We only got, listen, I'm going to be 68. We got where we are little by little. I mean, if you're going to weigh it in dollars and cents. And we got more in the negative than we have in the positive. You know, if you're going to measure it like that, it's little by little, folks. Little by little. It's taken me, I was telling you about the telegraph, it's taken me 5 years to get all the parts of the telegraph, find it. Bus and I, we were bidding on a telegraph probably 3 or 4 years ago. I said, well, get online. There was a nice one. It was better than the ones I had. I mean, it was cool looking. It probably was right on the B&O Railroad. You know, it got held up by Billy the Kid himself, or Jesse James, you know. And we got up to $300 and some for a telegraph. That would have been, I would assume, the sender and the solenoid. Are you going to spend $300 on a telegraph? We got up to that. I was getting a little edgy. And then we were right down to the last, usually when it goes haywire is the last 120 seconds. And it was the old eBay. And we were, and he bid. I said, well, bid. Do you want me to bid? Bid. Want me to bid? Bid. So we kept bidding it up, and I said, drop out. Somebody else got it. Probably a collector. It was deluxe. It was coming out of Texas. But it dropped out. So, but little by little, in 5 years, I got my telegraph. And it works. I'm going to hook it up in the house. The goal is to teach the children Morse code. And maybe be the archaic millennial who really knows that those phones and everything, and that's eBay and all, is still just the binary code. At least that's what I hope it is. I don't know. But little by little, this is slowly done. This did not get here overnight. Verse 26, let's get started here. That's where the paragraph marking starts. These are promises. Now we have all F words here tonight that I'm going to use. I tried to use, there's one or two of these I'm stretching here to get a word that's going to match. But we have 8 points here. There shall nothing cast their young. He's telling them about you're going to wander around these 40 years in the wilderness, and you're going to cross over. And you're going to cross over into the promised land. There shall nothing cast their young nor be barren in thy land. So there's this promise. And our first one is if nothing's going to cast their young, nothing shall cast their young nor be barren in thy land. What would be the F word for that? It's like bearing children. their cattle. At least that's the way I read it. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. Every woman produces what? Yeah, the fruit. I'm trying to encourage the church as a whole. Is God promises us this. Little by little, hang in there. Between the start of getting saved and the end of being saved, and when you pass on to the other side, you are going to produce the fruit that God promises you. We are going to be fruitful. The fruit. And a lot of times we don't see that. We don't see the fruit. You have like a baby crying. How do you make the baby stop crying? And you discipline them, and then they stop crying, and they finally behave, and so on. And we rarely see the fruit of our labor. But according to that, your young are not going to. How's it put it again? Verse 26, there shall nothing cast their young nor be barren in thy land. We must be believing that all of our efforts will be fruitful. Nathan was back here, and he was looking at, we're going to be up on Brook Park. By the way, did anybody drive over there? See if it's up. Not that you got to drive over there. Parma, Brook Park, to see if it's up. I might be pop over there tomorrow. Nobody went over there to see that? That's okay. But we're going to get it up there. I said, run the old ones that are colorful. He said, they're not reading these new ones. Now, according to the fruit that we're promised, the new ones we're doing the verse of the week. And it's up there. It's one color, black, and a ribbon of red, white letters. But according to the verse, it is fruitful. Even though we haven't seen the fruit, it is fruitful. The promise has been given us, the fruit. And so I said, go run those old ones that are colorful, different, more shocking and all. Let's get them up there. I said the east side has seen them, but the west side has not seen them. And I said, he said, we need to create more different ones. And I said, yeah, well, let's get busy and create new ones. I mean, we get into like a lull. And I think Captain Ahab said, hey, when the winds died down, well, how did they get out of there? How did they get out of when the winds died out? They were in the doldrums. I don't know, is that what you call them, the doldrums? How'd they get out of there?
They rode out.
They rowed out. How does he put it? It's probably quotes right out of the book. We must row out of these waters. So you get the oars out, and it's a slow go, rowing out of those waters. But we have been promised that we will be fruitful, the fruit. The number of thy days our next word, I will fulfill. The fulfillment. I was playing the piano there, and on that last song, I do this when I'm practicing my banjo. I actually get short of breath. I get short of breath, and I'm thinking, I'm not having a heart attack. And I sure don't feel like I'm having a heart attack, but man, I have to actually think about breathing. And I think, well, this could be it. Who used to say that all the time? This is the big one.
Fred G. Sanford.
I never saw one episode, but I know that about him. This is the big one. He was always croaking. This was the big one. But our second one is the fulfillment. We have to have this promise that the number of our days, he will fulfill this. He is going to get us, some die young, some die not so young, some die old. It seems like they never die. Well, God is still using that person. When God is done with you or then it's going to be over. So the fulfillment. Oh, and I know you're tired. Man, I know you're tired. The fulfillment of your days will take place. Our neighbor just died. They had the funeral yesterday. And the wife said that somebody had said that he was afraid of the high tension wires. Who told me that? Well, how did you know that? Or he was reluctant to move there because we're, if you ever notice, if you turn the lights on here on my flow, we are right next to the high tension wires. Is there a health problem with that? Is it a proven fact?
Depends on the intensity.
A little bit's urban myth, but there's a lot of people concerned about the frequency, the voltage, and ions. And
Pay no attention to my yeah.
The only way it really hurts you if the tower collapses and then 20,000 volt cables land on your roof.
It was Mark Wynn was saying that they have checkers for those lines. Now they fly out helicopters to check those lines.
Right.
He said there are men that actually get on the wires and walk those wires. I'm not an electrician, so I'm not keen on touching those suckers. Yes.
My uncle in Pennsylvania, the power company he worked for, which is also part of First Energy now, that's what he did in the Allegheny Mountains.
He would walk
from tower to tower.
Walk from tower to tower. I mean, that takes, I don't know, guts or...
Just walk across the wall.
I don't know. Would you walk from tower to tower on those wires? Now, we see the hawks fly up there. They're not afraid.
Why?
But he had been afraid or concerned about it, and he's younger than us. And so the concern was maybe that would cause a health problem. Well, listen, we have to get past that God is going to fulfill our days. And what he intends to accomplish with us, it will be fulfilled. Amen? We must confidently go forward. He is not done with you, and he is not done with me. How old was Moses? How old was Caleb? When it said, and his strength was not abated, and he was just as strong as ever Moses was. And how old was Caleb? Anybody know? He was born 60. I think he was 80. No, after they crossed over. I think he was 80. 80. Yeah, because they wandered for 40 years. And so I think it was 40 when they crossed over, then 40 years. Then when they cross over and get Jericho, he's 80. Then there's the 5 years expedition of destroying, which would have been this. And he was still just as strong as ever. Eventually they died, right? Young hundreds, in their young hundreds. But the days will be fulfilled. We must go on. The fulfillment. Verse 27, I will send my fear. Here's another F word. The fear. It's not the fear of us. It is the fear of the Lord. I will send my fear before thee. In verse 27, will destroy all the people to whom thou shalt come, and I will make all thine enemies turn their backs unto thee. The fear. I mean, now we as Christians, if I was, now I'm way too old for this, but if duty called, let's say the country went to war, I'm not a conscientious objector as far as the military is concerned. And I would probably go off to fight. I wouldn't sign up for the medical school. I would really want to get a Thompson machine gun. That's what I really want to do. But the fear is why is it they went after that Kavanaugh guy? They're not going after this AG from Virginia like they went after that Kavanaugh guy. Why are they after that Kavanaugh?
So it was reverse like Roe versus Wade.
Because he's going to reverse that Roe way. So what is the big scramble for right now? They're scrambling. Because this is looming. Because that woman... Yeah. 85, and why, and how are they scrambling? Because they figure this woman, there hasn't, she didn't show up for the speech, so they said there hasn't been a Ginsburg sighting. You know, they're interested in these Ginsburg sightings, whatever her name is. What are they doing? How are they scrambling? These liberals are scrambling. Nope. They are passing legislation and laws. How? State level. Virginia wants to do it. I think California has done it or is doing it. New York is doing it. It's going back the way it was before 1973. Is it 73? Yeah. Before 73. Making it a state issue instead of a federal issue because they'll flip it on the federal level and they can't, then they have to go state by state. And that's what, I think that's what they're trying to do. Listen, God does this, can do this with the nomination and the election of one man, not a movement, just one man. Whether or not you believe Donald Trump is saved or lost, one man, the election of one man, and the nomination and the installation of one justice and the threat of a second justice. He didn't need, if he does the threat of a second justice with Donald Trump, that's just 3 people. Not counting the votes of Congress to get these people passed, to get them installed. But he didn't have to assemble an army. He didn't have to get all the... Now, they've been marching for 30 years, right? They march, January the 20th? They march on a certain day. The pro-lifers, they march. But folks, they've been bold as brass. They are nervous. And God can send the fear of God into these people with or without our help. He doesn't necessarily need us, but the fear of God, it says here, I will send my fear before thee. And it's up to him to send it the way he would have it. He could raise up Christians to do it. He can use one president. He can use that and a couple of justices in flipping it. And I will destroy all the people to whom thou shalt come. I will make all thine enemies turn their backs unto thee. How do we come back at the second coming? The second, I'm not talking about the rapture. I'm talking about the second coming. We come back with him in the clouds. We were always taught we are riding white horses. Now, right now, I can't think of the verse to justify that. Does God need us? Now, without saying that, the assumption could come across in preaching that we come back to help out. He needs our help like he needs rocks in his head. He destroys them with the breath of his mouth. At the very end of the 1,000-year millennium, man, he's had enough because they surround Jerusalem down with a Jew, and God's going to destroy. How that ends? Is it that with the breath of his mouth? It's over. He treads out the winepress. It's the A word. He treads out the winepress alone. It does say that. And he's stained as the red of Edom because it's the blood of the people. He doesn't need our help. He'll tread out the winepress alone. He doesn't need our help. There's so many of these battles that take place. He said, you come down and you watch, and I will fight for thee. He gets them to fight against each other. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. When Elijah said, make this valley full of ditches, and they did their part. We preach you got to, it's tough to dig ditches if you haven't dug any ditch, especially once you get past the topsoil into the clay and start really digging a ditch. You haven't really worked. We have to do our part. He's going to do his part. And what did they see? They saw this reflection of the water somehow, and they said that They were fighting amongst each other, and they didn't even lift up they didn't even do anything. And they win. This is how we will win. God will fight for us. We will pray for, is it wrong to pray for a woman to die? This Ginsburg, man, I prayed for her to get out of the way somehow. To move her out of the way, get her out of there. I don't mean to kill her, but get her removed, resign, do something so they get this new one in. Well, he will nominate. What will he nominate, man or woman? Nope. The next in line, he was debatable. He wanted to get this woman, and what faith is this woman? She's as Roman Catholic as they get, and they hammered her for that. Wait till, if you think they were rabid dogs with that Kavanaugh, wait till, and is a Democrat supposed to uphold whose rights? A woman's rights. They're going to be in a fix. They're going to be in a pickle. Because he's going to nominate, I don't know this woman's name, he'll probably nominate this woman. And they're going to go after her like rabid dogs. And they're not going to look good because it's the Democrats are supposed to uphold women. And it's just the opposite. So the fear of God, I will send my fear before thee. God knows just how to do it. He doesn't need our help. The fear of God. Our neighbor here, he literally called, I know I've told this story before, he literally called, I got a call from the fire chief. He said, well, I got to come out and inspect. I have to. He's actually the mayor, and he's a Catholic, and he's the mayor. At that time, he was the fire chief, and he called me on the phone. He said, and he's inspected over here. When my tenant moved out, he did an inspection, and I'm used to seeing these 4-foot fluorescent lights. Our lights it's not pressed tin, the ends were cast iron. The ends of our light fixtures. We're talking 1910. It's actually cast iron, cast raised letters, the whole thing. And that's what I'm accustomed to seeing. I'm not accustomed to seeing this other stuff. We walked in this one room, and there were these 4-foot bulbs, and they were in this pressed tin thing. And I had to, maybe I was just dumb. I didn't even know what it was. I said, I looked up at it, and I said, he's the fire chief. I said, what is that? I said, what do you call that? And he looked up, and he said, cheap. That was his response, cheap. I never thought about it. It's because I've never been to, I didn't go to Home Depot. I probably never walked into Home Depot at the time to see just how cheap what cheap was. It was so cheap. Well, he called me on the phone. He was still the fire chief, and he said, I'm sorry, but I got to come out and inspect the church. Because we've heard rumors that there's hundreds of people coming. Hundreds. Cars are everywhere. We're making a ruckus and a racket every Sunday morning. He can't get, I said, well, come on out. And I said, well, and we came out, and he came out. I told the story before. I said, well, I'm the neighbor over here, so the call couldn't be me. And it's the squirrels, the nuts, and the fish are out back. I said it couldn't be the park. It's only dead people across the street, so it can't be them. So, and the boys own the other building. I said, well, it can only be the house. So we knew who was calling. And he checked it all. He said, oh, there's nothing going on here. He said, but I had to come out and look, So he had to come out. I mean, but people are afraid of the Lord. And we only met on Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. We weren't bothering him at all. The fear. Verse 28. Oh, and we're running out of time already. And I will send hornets before thee. Ever fight with hornets? Oh, that's our fourth word, the fight. I will send hornets. I would be painting the house, or my mother's house, or I'm painting the house. And I probably didn't paint my mother's house. This is where I grew up at. Not as good as I would paint my house. I'd be painting the next thing. I'm covered with hornets. Because where are the hornets living?
Up in the eave.
Up in the eave, they were behind the shutter. Yeah, so I was painting, and man, they came out attacking. I just have to go by what it says. I will send hornets before thee, which shall drive out the Hivite, the Canaanite, the Hittite from before thee. Now, I didn't do any cross-reference on this hornets. But but Jesus says, God says in several places in the Old Testament, I will fight for thee. How is he going to fight for us? I have no idea. But he's not going to use you or you. He's not going to use a Mauser or Thompson or whatever. You don't have to worry about that fellow with a switchblade knife. He's going to fight for us somehow. And he will turn the tables for you and I. He is going to he's going to take and do this. Listen, he has an army of children and women. I mean, when they came up out of Egypt, it was, how many people came up? Was it, anybody remember the number? How many men? 600,000? If you estimate then all the women and children, they may have estimated a couple million people. Look, God's army is mainly made up of, and they came out orderly. Well, how was that? They came out by, anybody can think of the word? Orderly, like they marched out. They came out.
Formation.
No, it means that. But that's not the word they use. I can't think of it right now. But the fight. Verse 29. And I will not drive them out from before thee in 1 year. Folks, we didn't do this in a year. Lest the land become desolate and the beasts of the field multiply against thee. It's a word that would describe us. We are the few, folks. We're not some vast army. How many people live in this country now? 350 million? Time of the Civil War, I think it was 35 million in the north and 5 million in the south. Who was outnumbered? The south. Of the 5 million that lived in the south, how many were slaves? I think I'm pretty accurate on this.
I think there was a few million slaves, but they weren't counted in that 5.
I thought they were counted in the 5 as 2 million. I could be wrong, brother. I could be wrong. I mean, man, the North had it. They had the industry. They were outnumbered. They had the South outnumbered, man, like 10 to 1, you know. We are counted as the few. He doesn't drive them all out at one time. He does it by little and little. I will drive them out from before thee until thou be increased and inherit the land. I guess the only good word I could come up with is he'll drive them out little by little, is the faith. We have to have the faith that we, little by little, got saved. Little by little, went to church. Little by little, we said, you know what, we should go to Wednesday prayer. We went to Wednesday prayer. Little by little, finally I said, you know, I need to go back to school. You want to go back to school when you're 40? 40 years of age. I talked to Greg Davis. I said, I started the church at 43. Guess how old Greg Davis is? 43. 43. That's when I started. Little by little is the faith. Faith. Keep plodding along. Keep plodding along. By faith, if we waited till we had cash for this building, there would never be a building here. We're still saving up for the building. We would never have had it. The faith. Faith. Until thou be increased and inherit the land. We're going to inherit the land. And I will set in verse 31, and I will set thy bounds from the Red Sea, even unto the sea of the Philistines, and from the desert unto the river, for I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and thou shalt drive them out before thee. All right, so he already predicts the finish or the future. You could say the finish or the future. He predicts how it's going to end and everything that they are going to accomplish. Did they conquer the whole world? Somebody may say, well, the known world at the time. Did they conquer the world? No. They conquered the bounds from the Red Sea under the sea of the Philistines, from the desert under the river, for I will deliver to the inhabitants the land of your... He gets the boundaries of this, the finish of it. Folks, Bethesda Baptist Church is not going to conquer the world. But the finish of this church will be what God has planned for the finish of us to be and what we are to accomplish. The future has already been mapped out. You want to include all of Christianity in this. I mean, it will be. Not only will it be the world, it will be the universe. The future. It is mapped out. The finish is known from the start. And last of all, our last F word. This is our 8th one. Verse 32 and 33. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. They shall not dwell in thy land, lest they make thee sin against thee. For if thou serve their gods, it will surely be a snare unto you. So what's our last F word? All that he's told in us here is what? Forbidden. The forbidden. All right? And what do people have missteps in their life, and they can be forgiven for that. But when we have a misstep, man, it retards us, it slows us down, it makes us have a misstep, so that maybe things are kind of short-circuited, and et cetera, et cetera. You know, this is what is forbidden, for us to just keep plodding along, and we're going to get there. You know, so it's kind of like being in the doldrums, and we row out of these waters. Sister found the banner. I found the banner in a tube. We pulled it out, didn't know what it was. We opened it up, and there it was, of the races or the nations. Well, it's time to. I don't know how long. It's been 10 years back in there. I don't know. Little by little, we framed it. We got the wrong paper. And tomorrow, I'll get the right paper. Little by little. We'll reprint some tracts. We'll write some more tracts. In other words, it's all little by little. Little by little. And eventually, we reach the finish line. Shake hands before leaving.